Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Mike Elko, the Texas A&M Aggies, starting to get active in the transfer portal, landing one of the premier playmakers at the wide receiver position available in the transfer portal. Cyrus Allen coming over from Louisiana Tech. A couple things that I really like about Cyrus Allen's game. One, he can attack vertically down the football field, and Texas A&M on that offensive side of the football, something that we said and talked about earlier in this summer. They struggle to push the football down the field, hit some of those explosive plays in that passing game. Cyrus Allen, kind of a wide receiver that specializes in that. And I think Mike Elko took a look at this wide receiver and said, how can we get more explosive? And I think Cyrus Allen is certainly going to bring that to the table. And you just saw Louisiana Tech wide receiver from last transfer portal cycle and Trey Harris jump up to the SEC level and make some big time impacts for Ole Miss. Really excited to talk a little bit about Cyrus Allen, what he brings to the table, and then talk about what Texas A&M and Mike Elko are doing in the transfer portal. Before we get into it, just want to say thank you to you guys. This has been a program that we've had a blast talking about. The amount of support from the Texas A&M fans, it is very much appreciated. If y'all do enjoy the content and enjoy the updates, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, I'm going to kick this one off to you. And I know you're a big fan of Cyrus Allen, even when he hit the portal here. How we feel about Cyrus Allen and the fit in College Station?
I mean, I think you summed up his game well. A guy who just gets open down the field and tracks the football at an extremely high level, which, again, like, it's great to be fast and all that, but you need to be able to keep your speed as you're tracking the ball. And that's one thing that you kind of notice from him, and being able to separate late at the catch and like kind of play like a little bit of a pro down the field, which is, again, we've talked about. If you want to play really good offense, you need to be able to hit those plays once in a while, because it's just too hard to grind your way down the field with like 5 to 6 yard plays.
And Cyrus Allen's a guy that he's not necessarily the big, like when Cyrus Allen hit the transfer portal, I checked out the production. I was like, this guy has some massive yards per catch number. I mean, 18.8 yards per catch his first 2 years at Louisiana Tech. And I checked the profile. I mean, 6 foot, 188, 180. It doesn't necessarily scream to you like vertical, big body down the field. He plays much bigger than his size, and you said it best. He's extremely comfortable tracking that football, and the ball skills are absolutely off the chart. A couple things that jumped out numbers-wise. Again, 18.8 yards per catch. That is a massive number. More importantly for me, a 70% contested catch rate. Again, this is not necessarily the biggest body working down the field, but he's very comfortable going up, taking on contact, and coming down with some of these footballs. And you can kind of see that translating to Texas A&M and at that SEC level.
Well, yeah, because those are like big-time traits that I just don't think are that common to see. I mean, everybody can run. Everybody can kind of do those other things, but to be able to track the football the way he does and make those sort of plays, that's just unique, and you just don't see that many college guys doing it.
And in a college football recruiting world where like size and speed markers are such a massive influence in terms of who's getting offers and who's getting the 4 and 5 stars, there's probably a reason Cyrus Allen was a low 3-star kind of diamond in the rough from the state of Louisiana, because he's not necessarily the biggest or fastest. But that gets to our next talking point, and that is Mike Elko is an elite talent evaluator. And that's what you're most excited for at Texas A&M. And don't get me wrong, Mike Elko is going to land the 4 and 5 stars, the top 100 national dudes. But what you're most excited for Mike Elko, and I think largely why he had so much success at Duke, is not only is he elite at developing these players, he is elite at evaluating talent, whether it's from the high school ranks, but he also had a ton of success evaluating these guys in the transfer portal. I mean, there are a ton of bodies coming from all sorts of rounds of college football. Can you open that transfer portal up and identify the guys that you think are going to make that transition to the Power 5 level? I trust Mike Elko to do it. And a guy like Cyrus Allen, again, not going to stand out a ton to a lot of people coming out of high school at 6 foot, 180 pounds. But, man, this dude knows how to play that wide receiver position. And no doubt in my mind, that stuck out to Mike Elko.
And you get into that, like, kind of conversation, and A&M was pretty much built off of hit on the highest ranked guys, and that's who they were concentrated
Did you
on.
see the story? Sorry to interrupt you. Of Jimbo Fisher, like, checking with his recruiting staff and saying, what is this going to make our composite score according to 24?
That's true. That's insane, because like the hit rate was just too low. I mean, I get it. He could go out and win the recruiting battles for sure, and they did good with their 5-star guys, but you just see so many. It's like to hit at the rate they were hitting, it felt like it was almost 50%. Like they'd have some really good players, Walter Nolan type guys, Evan Stewart type guys who are awesome. And then you'd have so many guys who just really never play and end up transferring a year or two out. And it's so hard to build a program up that way. So I think what you're hoping for from Mike Elko is to be able to, you still want to win those 5-star battles. I'm
100%.
not saying stars don't matter or any of that, but you want to see them maybe mix in some developmental guys like a Cyrus Allen, who, again, you kind of talk about, doesn't jump off the page in terms of traits, but then when you hit the film on and you're like, oh, well, this guy makes pro level plays, you need to build your roster a little bit with that. And I think you might be seeing a bit of a philosophy change in how Mike Elko does it, where it's not about seeing how highly of a ranked class you can pull in. It's, you got to win on the guys you want to win on, and you got to also win on some guys who can develop, stay in through your program for 4 or 5 years, and kind of become the nucleus of what you're doing.
Talent identification is so massive. And you look at some of the teams that have had a lot of success with it. Like Georgia obviously hits on a lot of those premier 5-star guys, but you look at some of the guys they've had a ton of success with are not necessarily the top 50 national dudes, right? A guy like Ladd McConkey, who's been massive for Georgia during their stretch. Stetson Bennett, obviously an unrated guy coming out of high school. Michigan's done a really good job too. Michigan's not necessarily in the top 10, top 8 recruiting classes in the country, but they do a nice job saying, yeah, I like this kid's game. 24/7 Sports or On 3 might not like it. We're going to get them into the program, develop them. And that's kind of a very good recipe. And Mike Elko at Duke,
especially in the portal era, where, again, like some of those top ranked guys, the second they're not getting it the way they want to get it and playing the way they want to, or playing at the amount they want to play, they're kind of more prone to hopping in. If you can get those guys who, again, what Mike Elko did at Duke, where he took guys, had them in the program for 4 or 5 years, and by the end of their time there, they were really good players. They were playing at a 4 or 5-star level. I know they maybe came in as 2 or 3s, but by the end of it, they were NFL football players.
And looking at Mike Elko and what he's done in the transfer portal, I know there might be some fans that are asking for a little bit more aggression and urgency in the transfer portal. And I mean, Will Lee, we got on and talked about Will Lee. I think Will Lee could be an absolute stud. And we know how Mike Elko can develop defensive backs. Javon Harvey coming from Old Dominion, Alex Howard coming from Youngstown State, not necessarily the premier household names, but some nice depth pieces. What I would say to Texas A&M fans who maybe are a little concerned about the lack of aggression and the lack of hitting on some of these guys like Colin Lacey coming from South Alabama is I think there's a fair amount of playing some roster defense here as well for Texas A&M. They will get aggressive in the transfer portal, but I think a lot of their efforts right now are trying to keep some of those big names in College Station. I think Mike Elko is trying to do that. And again, when the dust settles a little bit and that roster opens up and you realize where you need to go and address this in the portal, that's when you see a guy like Mike Elko get aggressive in the portal, because he did it at Duke, and I think he'll do it at College Station as well.
And frankly, I think there's also an element of seeing what he has, because I think as much as like they've lost some guys to the transfer portal that is Texas A&M, but it's not like if they keep what they have and like not that many more guys hit, they have the building blocks of a very good team. I mean, you're talking guys like Shamar Turner, Shamar Stewart, guys like that who are really elite players. You look at a Torian York who came out and played really well as a freshman, and even Connor Wigman. Like, you're keeping the nucleus of a very solid team, and I wonder if he'll maybe be a bit more active in the spring when he kind of knows what he has, what else he wants. When some guys start entering again, I don't know. I think like getting that wrapped up in what's happening right now, I think would be a little short-sighted, just given what Mike Elko's done in the past, where he's not really ever been about that, like being really active portal-wise or really active recruiting-wise. He has always kind of, I feel like, focused on his team, building the guys out through his team in winning that way.
It's a calculated approach. He's always been I mean, going back to his time at Duke, he's just a calculated guy. He's not like Lane Kiffin. He's not on Twitter and like kind of making some of those flashy moves. Very calculated. That's kind of the approach you're seeing.
You even saw that. I think there's an element of like a lot of guys in the portal right now that might not be in the portal for the right reasons. Exactly. I mean, you see,
it's fair.
You hear some of those ones that have surprised us. I'm not going to go through and list them all, but some of these ones, like, oh man, that guy was playing a lot at that school, and now suddenly he wants to leave. Like that, I would imagine if you're Mike Elko, and I think a lot of other football coaches, you might be looking around like, do I really want to go jump at this guy who might be gone next year too? It's like, I do think there is a bit more of like what you said, being calculated and trying to find guys who fit your culture and are going to be part of the program in the way you want them to be part of it. And right now, I think there are those guys for sure, but there's a lot of guys who probably aren't really fit.
And you look at a guy like Cyrus Allen, 2 years of eligibility left. So it's like we're obviously want to win football games in 2024, but we're building for 2024 and 2025 and 2026. Last guy I want to talk about, and again, talking about a potential nucleus in the back end, Jermod McCoy, true freshman last year at Oregon State. I love this cat. And we talked about like Texas A&M needs to address the back end. They got Will Lee, who I think could be an all-SEC NFL caliber guy. If you can get Jermod McCoy on the other side, this is a guy at Oregon State, faced 47 targets last year, only gave up 27 catches, 8 forced incompletions, all while being a true freshman. And you look at the passing attacks that he saw at the Pac-12, like really good quarterbacks, good wide receivers. Those numbers are phenomenal. That's why he's one of the more coveted guys in this transfer portal in College Station this weekend. If you can land a guy like Jermod McCoy, again, talk about future building blocks. This is a guy that'll be there for at least 2 more years. I think Texas A&M would feel very good about grabbing Jermod McCoy to pair him up with a guy like Will Lee coming from Kansas State.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be a couple of really good corners and nicely younger corners too, who are going to be around for a little while.
At positions of need, like that is a position of need for Texas A&M. And one other thing I'll add before we get out of here is Mike Elko, like that's his baby. Like what he did at Duke in terms of coaching up that secondary, like he knows how to evaluate cornerbacks. He knows how to coach those guys up in the back end. And that's something you didn't really get from Texas A&M. A lot of guys who are really talented at Texas A&M in that back end never really reached their potential. You're going to start seeing that in College Station. A guy like Jermod McCoy, Will Lee, that would really excite me if I'm Texas A&M fans. We'll end it on that again. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. We're going to have plenty more updates for this Texas A&M program. Appreciate y'all rocking with us. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to you guys later.